witness has taken the stand at the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Ballistic expert Chris Mangena was being cross-examined earlier. He corroborated some evidence earlier, but his cross-examination was then later postponed. Today, another ballistic expert by the name of Dr. Cornelius took the stand. And in court today was my colleague Manqoba Mchunu, who's joining us now this hour. Manqoba, welcome back. So, Dr. Rulufse, another, or is it a Dr. Rulufse? I'm just giving him a doctorate now, but this gentleman is a ballistic expert. He gave evidence today. What came out?
Well, certainly, Prajan, it's actually a police officer, warrant officer, Cornelius Rulufse, who also is a ballistic expert, and he also gave testimony in court today. But just to clarify the issue around Chris Mangena's testimony in court, or cross-examination rather, Pradan, you recall that yesterday that cross-examination had been postponed. This is after the defense had requested more time to consult with their own expert in order to be able then to prepare for that cross-examination, and the judge ruling that it was in the interest of justice for these accused to be allowed to prepare their defense in this particular matter. So we had a new witness today in the form of Rulufse, and you recall, Pradan, it's not the first time that you're hearing the name of Rulufse. Of course, he worked with Chris Mangena in the ballistics section at the Forensic Laboratory Services, and he also was one of those that had analyzed and tested this particular firearm that was confiscated from accused number 3 back in 2015. You recall, Pradan, that we've heard that Tobisi Mngube was actually arrested back in 2015 for a taxi-related crime, which he was sentenced to 35 years for. And that very same weapon that he was arrested for had been linked by Rulufse to that particular crime that had happened in that particular, taxi-related shooting. And so he was the first one to examine this firearm before Chris Mangena had done so for this case involving the shooting of Senzo Meyiwa. We know that this was only done in 2020, 3 years after that gun was meant to have been destroyed. But what I did confirm to the court was that firstly, this firearm, when he received it, it didn't have a serial number, and he was able then to etch the serial number out of this particular firearm. He also confirmed that when he received it, it was in a seal bag. And of course, you know, Pradan, that this has been the question as far as police procedures are concerned, with how they handle the evidence, the transporting and moving of evidence. And of course, we heard also from an affidavit of Chris Mangena that, in fact, this firearm, when he had collected it in 2020, the seal bag had been opened at the time. So there were many questions about really the police procedures as far as this is concerned, but also as far as, the bullet itself and, whether or not, Chris Mangena had been correct to say that this is the very firearm that had killed Senzo Meyiwa. They were asked questions as to whether, similar firearms like 9mm, wouldn't those have similar sort of individual markings and class, class markings as far as that is concerned. But let's take a listen to how the defense had tried to poke holes in what Mangena had said in court.
In your experience as a ballistics expert from 2001, have you ever seen two firearms to leave similar class characteristics and individual characteristics on projectiles or bullets?
My Lord, for instance, if we take this firearm, the CZ75, that might be that the class characteristics might be the same, but individual markings will be different.
Okay, there was more interaction, Manqoba, there, especially with the judge around the testimony of Rulufse.
Certainly, Pradan, and of course, one of the questions that came from the defense is around the firearm itself. You recall that what the defense has been trying to show really here in this case is that there was tampering of evidence, there was contamination of the crime scene. We heard from the defense previously saying that possibly the bullet head that was found on the kitchen cupboard that could have been placed or planted by somebody who arrived on the scene the next day, because we know now that the scene had not been properly properly secured. It was also at some point left with, one of the relatives of the Khumalos while the police went to the hospital. So they have been contending, of course, that, all of this is a cover-up and that perhaps the exhibits had been exchanged, the firearms might have been exchanged. And so the question really was whether or not this is the firearm that Roelofse had investigated back in 2015, which has now been linked to Senzo Meyiwa. Take a listen to the judge seeking clarity on that.
The exhibits which you sealed on the 30th.
On the 13th.
On the 13th of February 2015, right? Today is the 1st of September 2023. Are they the same exhibits that you sealed?
Yeah, it's the same firearm.
That's it.
It's the same firearm, my lord.
And then the blue case, you actually wrote on it in February 2015.
It's the blue case, yeah, it's the same
blue
blue case.
So that hiatus of that missing time, which would have accorded an unscrupulous person to switch the firearms. Is it the same firearm which you sealed?
Yeah, according to me, the one that I marked with the lab number.
In 2015.
According to me, my lord, yeah.
And today is the 1st of September 2023. Is still the same firearm.
According to me, my lord.
That's it. Okay, fine. You can go on.
That's the judge there interacting with Warrant Officer Roelofse in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, ending that update by Manqoba Mchunu. Now let's take you